are going to spend just a short moment getting around the Word this morning, and it is my privilege to do that and to chat with you this morning. But hey, what an incredible thing it is to witness baptisms, the public declaration of what's been happening in these young people's internal lives, the work of Jesus in their life. How good is that this morning? I pray this morning that as I share, I'm not going to share for very long because it's already quite late, and I'm hungry, and I don't know about you, but there is food after the service, so you know. But I pray this morning that this would be just a moment for you to reflect with me on your personal walk and your journey as well this morning. But recently I've been chatting with, I was having a conversation with some teenagers about my teen self. Some 8 years ago, I was in the youth ministry as a teenager, and we were chatting about my poor fashion sense as a teenager. Is anybody else with me think back on their teen years and think, who let me out of the house wearing clothes like that? And when I was talking with them, I was actually explaining that I don't even think you could say I had any fashion sense because it was really that bad. Any of the youth leaders that were around back then, maybe Pastor Ange, Pastor Kerry, could probably reminisce on how poorly dressed I truly was. I'd be seen wearing mismatched patterns or just like checkered everything or things with holes in it. Like, I think back and I think, parents, why would you ever even let me own clothes that looked like that, let alone let me out of the house wearing them? But hey, is what it is. But I think when I think of my fashion sense now, it's still not great, but it is better. But I think that can be compared with our personal walks with Jesus as well. My BC life, my before Christ life, wasn't perfect. It wasn't great at all, to be honest. And I'm not perfect now, but gee, am I better than I once was. The book of Zechariah is full of prophecies of what it is that God was planning on doing through his nation, Israel, through the Jews, and also through Jesus. Zechariah chapter 3 is, I think, a perfect picture of what it is that we were celebrating this morning, and so I'm going to read that to you now. This is Zechariah chapter 3, verses 1 to 5. It says, "The angel showed me Jeshua, the high priest, standing before the angel of the Lord. The accuser was there at the angel's right hand, making accusations against Jeshua. And the Lord said to Satan, I, the Lord, reject your accusations. Yes, the Lord who has chosen Jerusalem rebukes you." Then in verse 3 it says, "Jeshua's clothing was filthy as he stood there before the angel. So the angel said to the others standing there, 'Take off his filthy clothes.' And he turned to Jeshua and said, 'See, I have taken away your sins, and now I'm giving you these fine new clothes.' And that Zechariah said they should place a clean turban on his head. So they put a priestly turban on his head and dressed him in new clothes while the angel of the Lord stood by." See, this prophecy explores the question, how can a holy God bless a sinful nation? How can a holy God bless a sinful people? And as it talks about that person, Jeshua, that was representative of Jerusalem, the nation that was sinful, the nation that had abandoned God time and time again. And yet, the answer that God gives is, my wonderful, wonderful grace. See, that filthy clothing that Jeshua was wearing was representative of all of his sin and all of his shame. And it wasn't that they just took the clothes and washed them clean, but they actually replaced them with new clothes, with fine new clothes. And they placed the turban on his head, and what would have been written on that turban was, "Holy is the Lord." See, the day that we said yes to God, the day that these young people said yes to God, was a day like this. It wasn't just a washing of their dirty clothes, of our sin and of our shame, but it was the removal of it completely and giving us a new fit, as the teenagers would say, or a new outfit entirely. And if I could give a title to this message this morning, it would be New Life equals New Fit, or New Outfit if you can't keep up with the slang. See, God didn't just wash us clean, but he replaced our sin and our shame with his righteousness. And then he called us to his holiness. This is what we see Jesus doing in each and every person's life, a testimony of his holiness, of his grace. And if we move forward to a New Testament church, a church in Colossae, the Colossians had heard the gospel and they'd heard the message of Jesus and they'd been redeemed, but they'd let other voices creep in. There was false teachers teaching legalism and warping their view of God's grace and God's sufficiency. And so Paul is writing them a letter, and he thought it was timely to remind them of how it is that we're called to live a new life. And his best description of it is that same analogy. It's not just a new life, but it's a new outfit entirely. And so this is Colossians chapter 3. Verse 1 says this: "See, you have been raised to new life with Christ. Set your sights on the realities of heaven, where Christ sits in the place of honor at God's right hand. Think about the things of heaven, not the things of earth." And then in verse 5, he talks about the things of our old life. So put to death the sinful earthly things lurking within you. Have nothing to do with immorality, impurity, lust, and evil desires. Don't be greedy or worship things of this world. You used to do these things when your life was still part of this world, but now is the time to get rid of them, of anger, of rage, of slander, and dirty language. And then in verse 10, it talks about this new nature, this new outfit. Put on your new nature and be renewed as you learn to know your Creator and become like Him. In this new life, it doesn't matter if you're a Jew or a Gentile, circumcised or uncircumcised, slave or free. Christ is all that matters, and He lives in all of us. Since God chose you to be the holy people that He loves, clothe yourselves with tender-hearted mercy, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Make allowances for each other's faults and forgive those who offend you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you should forgive others. And above all, clothe yourselves with love that binds us all together in perfect harmony. And let peace that comes from Christ rule in your hearts. Verse 16, it says, "Let the message about Christ in all its richness fill your lives. Teach and counsel each other with the wisdom He gives. Sing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs to God with thankful hearts. And whatever you do or say, do it as a representative of Jesus, giving thanks through Him to God the Father." Watching baptisms for me is often a reminder of that reality. We're called to a new life, not the old life cleaned, but a new life entirely. We're clothed in God's holiness and in His righteousness. And we're called to cast off all of the old outfit. It's not like, okay, we'll give you a new shirt, but you've got to wear those tatty pants. It's the whole outfit entirely. And leave behind everything that we once knew and begin to live Christ-like in our new Christ-like nature. Yeah. Verse 10, it says we're called to be renewed and become more like Jesus. But I think sometimes as we, live on throughout our lives, I remember it was really easy for me to live eagerly for God in the beginning. I got baptized when I would have been maybe 17, or maybe I think I'd just turned 17, and so I hadn't really experienced a whole lot of life yet. And I remember it was pretty easy to feel like I had a childlike faith, to trust in God, because it was all new and I didn't know all that much. But the more life that I've lived, the more distractions creep in. We've got work with busyness, serving with tiredness. It becomes harder to remain eager, to remain intentional, to fix our eyes on Jesus all of the time. So I wonder this morning, if you reflect on your own life, what is it that we're wearing in our day-to-day lives? Are we still wearing the rage, the malice, the idolatry, and the greed? Or are we wearing mercy, kindness, humility, gentleness, patience, and love? Do we see the world around us like we always did, with negativity or cynicism? Or do we live with a heavenly perspective? Do we set our sights on heaven and let that be the shaper of our perspectives today? I pray this morning it would be a reminder of the new life that we're called to live. This new life completely, not just a washed one. And if you're thinking this morning, but how do I actually practically do that? Well, I think Paul gave us a few thoughts about that at the end of his passage there. It says, "Let the message about Christ in all its richness fill your lives." Not just be part of your lives, but completely fill them. I wonder this morning, is your eyes fixed on Jesus so much so that Jesus is the center of your attention, the whole of our attention, filling our lives? And then Paul says, "Teach and counsel each other with all the wisdom that He gives. Sing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs to God with thankful hearts. And whatever you do or say, do it as a representative of Jesus, giving thanks through Him to God the Father." Jesus' work on the cross is enough. His power and strength is enough. His grace is more than enough for us this morning. And Paul doesn't say once, but he says twice, give thanks. And I wonder if that was intentional, because maybe that is a key to keeping our eyes on Jesus this morning, on helping keep our attention on him, allowing us to become more like him, allowing us to leave behind the old self because we're constantly looking to the new self, giving thanks to God for his grace and his mercy. And so I wonder this morning, what does thankfulness look like in your life? Is it just on a Sunday that we're suddenly thankful, or is it on a Monday and a Wednesday and a Friday that even though our life feels hard, we're intentionally thankful? I think thankfulness is the thing that helps us keep our eyes fixed on Jesus. Would you agree this morning? I'm going to take a moment to pray, and then we're going to get those wonderful 7 young people up here to celebrate them once more. But God, I thank you in this place this morning for your wonderful, wonderful grace. And God, we thank you this morning that you don't just wash us clean, but you actually raise us into new life this morning. God, that empowers us to live anew, becoming more and more like you in this place today. God, we pray this morning that no matter what it is that we might feel like could be distracting us in our worlds today, God, that we would be fixing our eyes back on you. God, that we would continually approach you with thankfulness for your grace and thankfulness for your mercy and thankfulness for your power at work in us. God, you are so, so good and so, so merciful. And so, God, we just give you all of the glory for each and every person in this room today. In Jesus' mighty, mighty name, amen.